Hi, I'm Ken. Let's turn one of these into a slip pump. I don't make all that many pots, so I've been managing my slip out of a 5-gallon bucket. However, like many of you, I've seen others with slip tables, and I've always been a little bit envious, I think. I don't have a space for a slip table for sure, and I don't make enough pots to justify one. However, there are some properties of it that I think would be very nice to have. So a while ago, I went ahead and made basically half of a slip table. So I made this here. This is a bunch of PVC pipe and PVC fittings. And I call this my slip table. It's kind of half of a slip table. Basically, these bars here, let me take a mold and then turn it upside down, and it can drain here. So really this is a place for the slip to drain. For a real slip table, there would normally be a large reservoir in the bottom and all the slip would go and accumulate. And instead of drying out like this, it would just go back straight into the liquid slip. I don't really have a permanent home for this. It kind of moves around. And when I first made it, I wasn't sure if I would want to try and keep the slip liquid or not. And I've basically just let it go ahead and dry out. And this clay can be rehydrated basically indefinitely, so it's not really that big of a problem. So often I'll set my molds up here and basically go ahead and pour the slip in. And then to do that, I've been using this container here. I'll fish some slip out of the bucket and then put it in here temporarily and then take this and pour it in. And this part here is the part I want to get rid of and what we're going to replace in this video. So I looked around at basically different pumps that you could use, and the way the real tables work is they basically have a nozzle that's kind of like a gas nozzle that the slip comes out at the end, and then on the other side there is a mixer and a pump that sucks in the slip. I've talked to a few people who had similar ideas. However, I did find one contrarian opinion, and actually that's what I'm going to go with in this video. I had a chance to talk with Jason from Lost Saddle Company a while ago, and he actually dismissed slip table he had. He said that really they're more of a pain than they're worth. They require a lot of cleaning, and I could totally see that, having a hose that basically is full of slip. And if you're not using it every day, I'd imagine cycling the clay and cleaning it would be really annoying, and likewise the nozzle as well. So if you're making a lot of pots, it probably makes a lot of sense. But for someone like me, where it's relatively low volume, I think the slip pump and the nozzle would probably be more pain than it's worth. So that's what gets back to the bucket. And this is inspired again by Jason and his approach. So the idea is to keep the slip in a bucket, only we add a spigot to the bottom, basically down here. And now the slip can drain out the bottom and we can put it underneath the mold. So the way he has this set up, he has it, I don't know exactly what height, and he puts his mold underneath and lets the slip drain into that. That isn't something I'm very excited about. I don't really want to be lugging my molds around any more than possible, but I think I have a solution for that. However, we'll get to that in a few minutes. So basically we're going to turn the bucket into a potential energy pump. We are going to go ahead and fill it up with slip and then let it drain out, and that will fill up the molds. So I went ahead and marked out a hole, so we need to go ahead and drill that. But before that, I think I can go ahead and empty my slip table so we have a nice fresh start. So the tray just kind of sets in there. And there's all sorts of clay that's kind of lumped on there. I usually don't worry about it too much. And then I have a bucket that I can put my reclaimed clay in, and I basically just pick it up and drop it in. This is a dusty process, so I recommend putting on your mask while you're doing this since you're handling dry clay. And I actually wind up using a respirator. All right, there we go. There's still some more clay in here, but I can clean it off some more, but I think it's good enough. And we can turn our attention to the bucket. So basically we need to make a hole here for this nozzle to go down in. And there's some extra hardware that goes on the other side here. So let's do that. So I here have a step drill bit size. This basically drills progressively larger and larger holes. I'm gonna go ahead and use that. You could just use a drill bit. That's the right size for the nozzle hardware that you get. And of course I'll put a link down in the description for exactly what I have. So use the big one because we need to make a hole basically that big. All right, check how we're doing. We don't need the hole too big. And I'm keeping this off the bottom intentionally because there's a nut that needs to go on here. And if it were too low, I wouldn't be able to get that nut on. All right, this is looking pretty good. Got a deburring tool. You just basically take the plastic off the inside. All right, and here are the other bits of hardware. And I actually forgot, I need to make the hole this big, not this big. So I need to go ahead and open it up a little bit more. So this here goes from the outside, and there's a rubber washer in there that is supposed to be watertight. This is meant for rain barrels, apparently. This will sandwich on there, and then we have a nut to tighten things down. And then this piece here actually screws into there with some Teflon tape. All right, put that through there. This plastic washer on the outside. Now this is a left-hand thread, so I can't get it on. All right, that's all tightened down. So now this piece will thread in there, and it obviously has the valve on it, and they provided some Teflon tape, so I think I'll use that. I'll put this on the same way the threads go. This just helps make a seal. Get this spun around facing the right direction. All right, cool. There we go. Now we have a spout in the bottom of the bucket, and this will be where the slip comes out. I want to make sure this doesn't leak, so let me go ahead off camera and do a water check and make sure I don't need to tighten these things up. All right, I think we're good, no leaks. So I went ahead and filled it up with water. Actually, it was also a chance for me to get out the little extra plastic bits from drilling it out. And I didn't see any leaks. I guess we'll find out for real when we put slip in it. And at this point, I think we could be done. So I think you could go ahead and fill this up with slip. At that point, you would basically need to hang this off the side of your bench somehow. So if you had it like this, you could hang it off the side of your bench, take a mold, put it under here, and this is what Jason does. I think he puts it on a chair or something like that, so the mold's down below, and then pick it up. So there's this tension between the bucket being tall enough so you can fill up your molds, and being low enough so you can reach the top and mix it and add more clay. So what I'm doing is adding one more piece, and that's this thing here. I was thinking about several different options that could let me basically lift the bucket up and lower it back down, from winches to car jacks to a bunch of other things. The trick is I wanted basically something stand alone. And what is it? Well, it's a motorcycle jack. So this is designed to handle basically 1,000 pounds, 500 kilos, way more than a bucket of slip, so I think it's in good shape, and it can go up and down quite a bit. So there's a nut over here on the side, and I found a socket that fits it, so I can put on my drill. It goes up just like that. I don't remember exactly how far this goes up. It's like, I don't know, 14, 15 inches, so a fair bit. So I get a fair bit of change in altitude. And of course the bucket will sit up on top of here, which is basically out of frame for you guys, but you'll get the idea. The other benefit of this is I think it's big enough that I could actually potentially fit 2 buckets up here. The reclaimed clay sometimes has some colorants in it, and I will basically have a randomly mixed colored clay as well. So I might have a second bucket that I could put up here in addition to my pristine white clay. And believe it or not, this is one of the things that instigated me rearranging my studio space. I knew I wanted a place for this to live permanently because the jack stand wouldn't be able to move around, and I figured a place next to my bench would be good. So this is a little hard to show you, but off to the side of my bench, I can go ahead and put this. It's a little bit lower, so when it's all the way lowered, it's basically the same level as my bench. And when it goes up, I have plenty of room for my molds. So let me go ahead and show that. All right, this is basically out of frame all the time, but here is the motorcycle lift, and on top is the bucket. This will be full of slip. I've got my spout, and then below that, I can put my molds, and I have plenty of room for the slip to come down, and then the slip will fall down into the mold. And when I want to mix up a new batch of slip, I can go ahead and lower this down. So there we go, it's all the way to the bottom. I still got some space for the spout, and now I can reach this pretty comfortably. It's a little bit high, it may be maybe a little bit lower, but I think overall it's pretty good. When it's empty, I can pull this down and move it around. The problem is when it's full, it actually gets pretty heavy. And so the potential energy pump is when it's high, and we add that potential energy into the system by using the drill and lifting up the motorcycle stand. So I think with that, it's time to mix up a new batch of slip. So this here is the slip that I use. It's from Clay Planet, which is my local pottery supply store. They mix it up themselves. This is a porcelain-like stoneware. So this plus water plus deflocculant is my slip. So I'm on the side of my other bucket, I actually wrote down all the conversions, so I don't have to do the math anymore. So to have 30% water, I need 4.86 kilograms of water. And I'll put that into the bucket first, and then I'll put the slip in on that, and then I'll add in some deflocculant. And I use Darvan 7, so the amount of deflocculant really doesn't matter too much. All right, I just got the water measured out and put in there. And the reason I want to put the water in first is so you don't have any dry stuff on the bottom that the water doesn't get to. And then my mask again, and we'll dump in the clay. And next is a little bit of Darvan 7. And one of the reasons I use Darvan is the precise amount doesn't matter too much. Unlike sodium silicate, if you put in too much, it can actually make the slip thicker. And then here on my bench, I have a drill with a mixing attachment. I might move this around now that I have my slip in a different spot. Give it a quick stir. Basically want to get the clay hydrated so there's not much dust flying around. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let that slake for a while, mix it some more, and then slake some more, and then we'll come back when we're ready to pour a pot. The slip is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and test out a pot. So there's the slip all mixed up. Now I need to raise the bucket up. So I've got my mold, let's go ahead and put it underneath. So we should just open it up and we'll see how the slip comes out. Oh yeah, no problem. Into the slip well. I can grab the mold and set it up on the table here. I usually just let it sit here. All right, so for right now, I'm just gonna do this one and see how everything works. And I think I wanna clean out the spigot here. So I've got a spray bottle with some water. Basically, I just don't want clay building up in there, and it will eventually dry. On the other side, it should be fine. All right, next this sits, and then we'll dump the slip back out. The slip has sat long enough so the pot has formed. And now I need to take this and dump it back in the bucket. And I think to do that, I'm actually gonna lower the bucket back down. And usually I just let it drain for a minute. Usually I lean it up on the side there, so it's a bit of an angle, so I don't wind up with any stalactites forming in the bottom of my pot. And if you do this, definitely get yourself a socket to put on your drill. Makes going up and down way easier. It comes with this handle here, which works, but it's definitely a pain. And with that, hopefully I now have a completed slip system, so I can go from liquid slip and let it pour out, and I can get rid of my tub and stop fishing it out of the bucket. Let the pot sit here on my drainage table. When that's full, I can reclaim the dry slip. And you saw how much slip was in there right at the beginning. It's been a long time since I cleaned it out. There's very little that actually kind of comes and drains out. So not exactly a slip table, but I think this will suit me well for the number of pots that I make. And it's relatively affordable. The spigot for the bucket's pretty cheap. And the most expensive part was probably the motorcycle jack stand thing. But I managed to find one of those that had been returned, so it was, I think, maybe $50, so not too bad. And it definitely beats being hunched over and holding onto the molds or having to lift the bucket up. And now with this in place, I can go and make a bunch more pots. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks.